You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Chris Vermeulen. His website is thegoldanoilguy.com. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim.
Well, what is happening with crude? We hit 6.5-year low prices. Is there any hope in sight?
Crude oil, it looks as though we got some pretty good, actually, hope in sight. This has been a nice, kind of dragged-out landslide of crude oil prices. We saw a nice double bottom formation being formed there back in January to March, and we saw a nice little bump there in price. It's a pattern that we see in a lot of bottoming formations, and what we're seeing now is just the lack of interest and follow-through in the buying, and we've seen this back in different markets at the end of major bear markets, and this is just what it is just a lot of low volume kind of sellers continuing just to unload and get rid of crude oil and continue to short it as kind of being the crowded play. And instead of price selling off really hard and dropping quickly, it's just this slow trickle effect of sellers and short sellers continuing to just slowly drive the price down, and there just isn't any interest in buying yet in this sector. And the fact that we're pushing to new multi-year lows again, and this is the third major multi-year low that we've seen in the last about a year here, it's a nice pattern that is going to eventually see a reversal, and we're going to see, I think, a significant low in crude oil put in. Now, we haven't seen any life in the energy stocks until the last week and a half. They have continued to underperform, and the way we usually see commodities and the stocks related to that commodity work is the equities usually are the leading indicator for the commodity. And so I've been waiting for the energy stocks to start to show some life, because they should start to put in a bottom and start to form some bullish patterns before we see crude oil actually even put in a bottom. And we've started to see that in the energy sector. So if you were to look at the chart of XLE, which is the energy sector ETF, we've actually started to see some pretty solid volume stepping in. We've seen big buying, and we're seeing some price action that is that usually indicates we're going to see more buying coming into the market. Still in the early stages here, but all the cycle analysis that I have, everything that's been leading up to this is showing that I think we're at an intermediate low, that we're going to see a 4 to 6 week rally in probably crude oil and also in the energy sector. And we can talk about the broad market later, but I think the broad market is about to firm up and probably push to new highs over the next couple of weeks. And of course, with the broad market and crude oil, I think, about to put in a bottom, the energy sector, XLE, I think could be an outperformer, one of the better plays and better sectors to take advantage of higher prices.
When we're in market conditions like that, it's important to realize where you have an opportunity to actually make a profit.
Yeah, and, it's really tough. A lot of people get stuck to just trading kind of, what they really like or what they always trade, and you have to sometimes look outside of the norm and go and look at some different investments. And a lot of people only trade, the financial sector. They love to trade, the banking stocks and things like that. But you really have to step back, look at all the sectors and find out, what's moving, what's setting up for a bigger move. And you have to coordinate it with what the broad market is doing. Because if the broad stock market is in an uptrend, you should only be looking to buy sectors or stocks that are set up in a bullish pattern, so to move higher. But if the broad market is trending down and looking pretty ugly, the last thing you want to be doing is buying any sector, no matter how hot it really looks. And right now we're seeing the broad market start to really firm up here, and it's showing multiple signs for it to move higher. And one of the most oversold sectors here that is showing real signs of investors moving in, finally, for the first time in 6 months, is the energy sector. And I think it's going to post some pretty decent gains here. And, of course, the Toronto Stock Exchange should do well because it's fairly heavily weighted with resources, crude oil, energy stocks. So I think we could see a nice bump in the TSX and the XLE, which is the American ETF for the energy sector.
Of course, the secret everybody knows, you buy low, sell high. But what I've seen is people don't start buying stuff until it's already high.
Oh, I know. It's extremely frustrating to watch and hear, and, I get emails and phone calls all the time. We see these opportunities where prices sold down to critical support levels, and, those are the times you want to be stepping in, just like in the energy sector here. I think we're forming a nice pattern. It's nice and low. It's showing everything that signs should move up. The problem is we're going to get, 5, 10, 20% rally in the sector. And then, of course, after we have 3 or 4 big up days, everybody piles in and says, should we be buying? It's moving. Well, the move is pretty much already done. The easy money's been already made. Now you're chasing, right? I see this a lot in the precious metals sector. Gold miners will be so beat up. They'll be at a nice critical support zone, oversold, ready for a bounce. And then we get 2 or 3 massive up days where the gold stocks rally 5 or 6% day after day, and they go right up to resistance. And the emails pile in. Everybody's saying, we need to get long here. We need to get long. Well, the move just happened, and, you don't just jump in when prices move. And that's the way the majority of people are. And if you look at the broad market sentiment right now, more investors are bullish now than they have been almost going back in history. There's the same with the 2007 top, 2008 top there. We're seeing the same bullish sentiment. Everybody is extremely bullish. There aren't that many people who are bearish, and it's just the way it is. When you're making money on something, they don't want to think anything else, so they just continue to buy. But this is a very dangerous time in the stock market to be adding to any long positions. If anything, you should just be monitoring and making a game plan for when prices turn around. This isn't a time to really be adding new long-term investments.
We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after this.
More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen. His website is thegoldandOilGuy.com. What's happening with gold? I understand some major moves because of the problems with the Shanghai market.
Yeah, last week we saw the yuan get devalued. One day it got devalued, threw everybody off guard, and we saw the stock markets, global markets, U.S. markets, everything got hit really hard, sold off sharply. And by surprise, the very next night, the exact same thing happened again. They devalued it for the second day in a row, created more of a landslide in U.S. equities and broad market equities. And of course, the uncertainty, we saw gold shoot up, we saw silver rally, we saw gold miners rally. Of course, devaluing currencies will definitely help with gold. And of course, when you have all these things going on, people are naturally going to want to gravitate to a physical asset. When you hear about currencies getting devalued, it's just instantly people think, well, I need to go to something physical, because who knows what, this could continue to be devalued for who knows how long, and it's really out of your control. So we saw a lot of money move into precious metals, and we've seen a really nice pop in price, but I think that fear, that pop is it's starting to be given back. Silver is having a big down day today, almost down 4%. We saw gold, silver, and miners pop straight up on this news, and now they're starting to deflate and come straight back down. And it's pretty much the way the markets work. Anything that moves straight up or straight down, usually you see the market come back to its mean and give back those gains or those losses. The market just can't handle sharp moves like that. It's just fear or greed-related blip on the chart, more or less.
With them wanting physical assets, does that mean we could expect even more Chinese money to look at high-end real estate in places like Vancouver?
Yeah, it's possible for sure. There's huge demand, for Asians to come over and accumulate real estate and properties, and that's really been a pretty, really big buyers in the market have been Asians coming and buying up real estate at good values. So I think that's definitely a good reason for that money to be moving over here to western side.
Yeah, somebody said as much as we think Vancouver real estate is expensive, and it is, compared to what it costs in Hong Kong, it's cheap.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I just had some friends over who lived in Hong Kong for the last 8 years. They were here last night, and we were talking about what they were doing in the real estate, and it was interesting. Over there, actually, they were over in China. They did work in Hong Kong also, but they lived in China, and they were talking about the big culture change. And in China, everyone likes to live in brand new things, but all the Westerners who are living over there, they like the old buildings that have character to them. And it's really interesting. You walk up, they were saying they would go to these buildings to look for a place to rent and live in, and it looks like a dive on the outside. It's old, it's beaten up, but you go inside and the landlords are kind of Western, and they've turned every room into a very stylish restoration hardware style type place. And he was talking about how a lot of these building owners, or they're not even building owners, these people are leasing these cheap old rundown buildings from Japanese or Chinese owners for pennies on the dollar, because in China they don't want to live in the old part, and then they sublease it out to Westerners after they fix it up, and they get 10 times on their money because they can charge the rent, jack it up, and of course the building will be full of Western individuals. It was really interesting to see how that was kind of happening. It was pretty interesting stories of how the lifestyle is over there.
Well, they really must like Vancouver's Yaletown then, because it looks like a science fiction set.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, the new the renovated BC Place Stadium, where they have multicolored lights that reflect what's happening in the city. So when we had the World Cup, we had different world flags on it. When Canada was playing, of course, they had the Canadian flag colors. If you come in across the Canby Street Bridge driving north, really, you'd think you stepped into the year 25,000,
I've never seen what it looks like, but I'll have to Google that and take a look.
Yeah.
Sure.
Although all these science fiction shows are supposed to be placed in the future, they shoot down at the old Expo 86 site. It looked futuristic then, and it still does.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. Yeah. Chris, always fascinating to talk to you, and you'll have something really special for us to talk about September 1st. You're going to be rolling out a new kind of program, and people should know about it, so we'll do a whole special show on that then.
It sounds great. I appreciate it, Jim.
My guest has been Chris Vermeulen. His website is thegoldanoilguy.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com Radio. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. If you have any comments about the show, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com Radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com Radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.